My memory of Laos is, it's a long time ago, so it's going to take me back a few years there. But I remember living in a village, in a Mien village, and it was probably a community of about 20 to 30 families. And the farmland is about a couple hours walk to get there. And I remember we had lived there long enough to where we had to build a second house. And so I remember helping with that whole process of my family building the second house. And then not long after that is the immigration. But I remember going to the farm with my parents, and as a child, there wasn't that much that I can do other than play and distract them perhaps. But when I got older, because I didn't leave Laos until I was 9, so I was able to contribute a little bit as far as gathering the harvest, whether it's the rice field or the corn field, and of course then we have the vegetable gardens near our house, and sometimes they also plant vegetables at the garden, at the field as well. And I remember playing with my sister. She's about a year older than me, and then I have 2 other brothers as well. And in the village, again, it's a typical Mien and Hmong village. It's the houses are built out of the roof is thatches or bamboo, and roof. Dirt floor, and the building, as far as the walls, they're either wood or bamboo, and just the floor is just hard floor, and your bed or just like a bench, basically. And I lived that way. We have maybe 1 set of clothes a year. I don't remember. I remember that I didn't have shoes, and just 1 set of pants and shirt, and yeah. So those are some of the memories of living in a Mien village. So the war have already been going on for some years already. So when I was born, I was in a northern village known as, at the time, Muang Sai. And so we were in that province, that region, and at the time, the communists have taken over that province. And so we became refugees within Laos. And so the Royal Army settled camps within that province so that they can slowly move us out of that province into the southern provinces. My family, I was just 1 year old. So I was just a baby, so this is stories that I've heard from my parents and others from our village, that so then apparently what happened is that during that time, when the communists took over that province, all the villagers were basically were asked to go to the refugee camp, which is not in Thailand, it's within that province, so that they can eventually move us out of the area. My parents and several other families went to the camp, but for about 2 months, they weren't, they didn't receive the permission to leave, to go to another province. So you're in the middle of nowhere, and my father and a couple other families decided we're gonna go back to the village. Now this is a previous village, because not the village I just talked about. And they said, let's see if we can live in the old village that we left, because we have food there. Now we still have our garden, we still have our farm, we still have our animals. So after 2 months they went back, but what happened was the enemy found us, and they they shot their missiles, and our house was destroyed. My uncle died, and my mom was injured, and I was just a baby, and my siblings, they were just 2-3 years old. Fortunately, my other uncle and my sister, older sister, was there, and they weren't injured, and so they helped us helped carry us down the hill. And apparently, then when the enemy soldiers came and saw the house was the shelter, basically it's a temporary shelter that was built, was destroyed, so they left, and they didn't find us, though my uncle passed away. And then someone went to find my father at the farm, and when he came back, he got a couple people to help carry my mom to the camp. And again, it's several hours to the camp, so it was, from what I understand, it was very difficult. But so I was the baby at the time, and my mom is in a lot of pain, and she wasn't able to nourish me. And my sister told me that they didn't have any food to feed me, and I was just a baby. There's no milk, so my mom has a lot of injuries. So from what I was told, I barely survived that, not just that incident, but the weeks and the months following. My mom and my sister and I were airlifted to a hospital in a city in Luang Prabang, and that's where she slowly got recovered. And then my father and the rest of my family were moved to, I believe by ship, down to Sanyaburi, which is a province on the west side of the Mekong River. I believe it was, it's more of a central west of Laos. And so that's what happened. I mean, so the war didn't just happen in the village that I grew up in, which is in Sanyaburi, and the war took place, in my lifetime when I was born, and what happened there in the northern province there, and then that was 1966, 67, when Laos fell under communism. Finally, in 1975, I was in that village from about 60 in Sanyaburi, from about 67 to 75. So that's where my memory is of that village. So what I do remember is before we left Laos, before we escaped, I remember soldiers coming to our village. And I remember the village came together and prepare a feast for the soldiers. And at the time, I didn't understand what was going on. But then later learned that the soldiers were there to, they were the enemy soldier that came and said, don't leave your village, don't leave the country. And our village elder says, oh no, we're not leaving, have a feast. But as soon as the soldiers left, we packed up and left. And by groups, in groups of families. And so I remember the soldiers coming to the village and that we fed them very well. And then right after that is when we started immigrate out of the village. As a child, I was 9 years old, so I really didn't quite know what was happening. I just knew that my mother and my father said, we have to leave in the middle of the night. And I couldn't understand why. I'm not sure whether I was sleeping or was awake, but what I do remember is that my parents said, we have to go. And I said, go where? They probably said something to me, but I don't remember what it was. And then we got together all things and began to walk out of the village. And I remember carrying something heavy, and I didn't know what it was. And along the way, I remember eating the rice. I can't really. It's the words. It's kind of like popcorn, but it's not. It's rice. So it's so that it's dry and so you can eat it. It doesn't spoil. So they fry it, and then and so that's what I remember eating that on the way. I remember drinking water out of the bamboo trunk, because you can, in a bamboo, you can, in a tropical rainforest, like in Laos, in Thailand, the water is in the different, in the trunks of the bamboo trunks. And so if you cut it open, then there's water to drink. So I remember that. But what I was carrying, later I learned, was some of the family's treasure. It was different pieces of silver and silver bars that, my parents had me carry. And then again, later I understand that because if we were caught in our escape, they probably were thinking that the enemy would not check a child, but would probably check the parents. So I understand that logic, and understood that I was carrying, the little pieces of silver that we had as a family, and in fact that has later, when we were in a refugee camp in Thailand, that's what we used to exchange and to tie money to try to buy food and different materials for clothing to survive there in a refugee camp in Thailand. We left the village with other families, and we were fortunate that the province is on the west side of the Mekong River already, so we don't have to cross the Mekong River on raft or a small boat like many other Lao refugees had to do. But we still had to walk about 3 days and get to a shelter in Thailand. and it was a temporary shelter. It wasn't quite when we got there, and until they set up the refugee camp. And this was in the Nan province in Laos. Eventually, everyone left, what I was told. But some people didn't want to leave right away, and so they tried to remain and see what happens. But eventually, everyone left, and then Mien and Hmong, in fact, Mien and Hmong were, our village was next to each other. And I grew up speaking Mien and Hmong because we were friends, neighboring friends. And so, yeah, so eventually we all moved out of that village called Nam Lu. Nam Lu is it's a river, and so we just named the village after this river called Nam Pui. And so, but then people who have came from other areas came through our village later on and realized that no one's there. So they took temporary shelter, in our houses that we left until they were, take a rest, and then before they did the same travel we did across into Thailand. When we were in Thailand, in that temporary shelter, we weren't there in the camps yet, but just wanted to add that a lot of people died, and I had a younger brother that died. He was like 1 year old at the time, so he had also passed away. There was just a lot of sickness. We escaped successfully, those of us who did, but for one reason or another, probably caught on some disease or something, and a lot of people died. And also, because of the animist and Taoist religion, there's also, you believe that the demonic spirits were, attacking the Mien people. And so I remember a lot of people died in that temporary place. And then eventually, and that's where my father died as well. My biological father had passed away. And I was, again, 9 years old, so I don't quite understand that concept at the time, losing my father. I remember he asked to speak to each one of us, and I went up and talked to him, and he talked to me. And then when I came down, my older sister went up. She started to just cry and cry and cry. But, and then that's when I realized that this is serious. That my dad is going to pass away. And so that's when I started to cry too. But when I talked to him, I didn't understand what he was trying to say. Then he passed, and we then went to the refugee camp in Nan province. We were, my two older brothers, my sister, and I, so 4 of us. I did have an older sister, an adopted sister, that's, she was an adult already, and my brother-in-law, she was married already, so they really helped us a lot because, they became my brother and my sister helped my mom in taking care of us. And then in the refugee camp, not long after my stepfather came into the picture, he also lost his wife in Laos, and they have a child as well. He's and I are about the same age. He's like 6 months older than me. And so him and his dad, my stepfather, came and joined our family. So that, that happens a lot, actually. when other families experience very similar things too. You lose other family members, and then you're just trying to survive. So if you can find others to join your family, then you do that to try to help each other out. Our refugee camp was right by Two River in the Nan province. And they weren't able to put the barbed wires around the camp because of the river, but it was pretty self-contained. And unlike other villages where they have kind of like box shelters, in our village we had to build our own house, our own shelter. Go gather the woods and the thatches and build out your own shelter. So we were used to doing that. That's how we lived in the village. So so that's a process in itself to try to build a shelter, a house within the village, and but we were it was a small area. There wasn't the land that we had in the villages in Laos where we can farm. And it is a cramped space because in a sense of there aren't the land for us to farm, and everyone has maybe a small pot of land to grow some vegetables and some.
So you had to grow your own food?
Yes. In our camp we did. There were some canned foods, I remember, that was brought to us, but then they're not our diet. Beans and, they're not our daily food. So we can't really eat beans or other food that, even if it's, I'm thinking of green beans, in a can, they're not fresh, so we don't really know what to do with it, So yeah, by and large, we had to survive on our own there in the refugee camp.
So what did you do for protein?
We did continue to raise chicken, and then Mien people, similar to the Hmong people, we were hunters, fisher and hunters as well as farmers. So, but it was limited capacity because it's a small village. Though in our village, because the river is right there, so we were fortunate because there were fish. I remember fishing in the village, swimming in the village, and I remember later learned that the adults, because I was a child, so the adults, some of them had at night escaped back to Laos, or at least out of the camp, and to go hunting and bring back some fresh meat.
What would you hunt?
Whatever the wild animals are. You have deer, you have monkeys, you have birds, a lot of birds. Wild hogs. So those are some of the animals that they hunted. So when you have a fresh meat from a hunter, you share it with the whole village. So, since that we were still pretty much homogeneous, though in our village again we were mixed with the Lao, I think some Lao, but a lot of Hmong as well in our village. So, but yeah, we maintain the language. The parents spoke to us in Mien, and we spoke to them in Mien. So that was maintained, and other than that, there really wasn't much else to do there. Again, in a refugee camp, I've described the good things, but a lot of people died there too out of disease and starvation because you just don't have enough to eat. And then we were persecuted by the soldiers as well, the Thai soldiers. They were supposed to guard and kept peace, but some of them were very, very mean and very vicious. And I remember a woman came from where the soldiers' areas were, and she was walking, she was about to fall, and there was blood following her trail. And it could have been a combination of her having a period as well as being taken advantage of, being a victim of a rape, one of the soldiers. So we were at their mercy. If they were kind, then we were okay. If they were ruthless, then we just suffer. What can we do? We're not citizens of Thailand. We don't have any rights. And if you complain about things, they threw you in a dungeon. And so that's kind of, as a child, again, that was my observation. My family were there for 4 years in that refugee camp. So the UN had come there, and they used the different people, the Thai government, to help, and you have to be interviewed, and they want to make sure that you did your family, at least one of the family members was in the army, and was serving on the U.S. side, on the CIA side, and so for our family, my stepfather became that person. So because he did serve and he was in the army, so did my brother-in-law, and so in fact, because they had to do 2 different set of papers, because my sister and my brother-in-law were adults already, and he was a soldier, so they had to apply separately from our family, and my stepfather applied on our behalf, and they asked questions about the war and asked about your experience in the war and what side you fought on, and that was very, very important. And that they asked questions about the weapons that you use. So you had to know, you had to be a military person to be able to answer these questions about weapons and what you did for the CIA. So that was the process. And then once you apply, then the paperwork then gets sent here to the U.S. If you can apply to come to the U.S. at the time, to France, or Canada. Those are the 3 countries that I remember at the time. I know later there are other countries that have added to the list. And my family actually applied to go to France. And then we received an okay, but my parents changed their mind. So they said, okay, we prefer to go to the U.S. And so they did that that documentation, and then received, after 4 years, they received permission and to come to the U.S. And once your name is announced, then you just get ready, and tomorrow you leave. They have trucks that came up to the village, and so we just load ourselves up on the truck, and they took us to again a kind of a temporary shelter in Bangkok, and then to get immunization and to make sure that you have everything in place to come over. if they do the medical exams and you don't have anything serious, then you wait in line to come to the U.S. My family had to wait there for 30 days because they had to treat my uncle, my uncle that saved me. He had TB, and so they had to treat that for a month, and then that's when we were able to come to the U.S. I was 9 years old when I left Laos, but when we were leaving Thailand, I was 13 already. Leaving Laos, I didn't want to leave because we had just built our new house. Again, as a child, I don't remember how long it was, but I remember, we actually built this house, and we actually have a door, that my parents made, and I remember this is at the village. So, having a door is a big deal. And your bedroom has a door. And so, as a child, I didn't understand what was going on. I like my village. I get to play with the other kids in the village. We came home from the farm with our parents, and then we find each other and we play in a village. I do have to tell another story in the village that I commonly do. I got in trouble one day, and this kind of illustrates the kind of the village structure. I was younger, but I was with, I believe, three other older friends, and we were being. I was a follower, and we were being mischievous. One of the neighbor was backyard garden. He grew grapefruits, and so we thought we'd go in there and snatch a few. So we did. Again, I was a follower because I was the smallest one, and I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10. No, I'm sorry, that was in. That wasn't at the camp. That was in Laos. So I was probably 8 or 9. Okay, before we left. And so he saw us, the owner of the house, and he says, "What are you kids doing? You're stealing my fruits?" So he came after us with a stake. And my friends, all boys, being mischievous. So he had a fence, and my friends were able to run and just jump over the fence. And I was the last one, and I don't think they were waiting for me either. They jumped across the fence. They were gone. I wasn't able to jump over. So I tried jumping over twice. I wasn't able to jump over. So then finally I climbed over, and then ran away. Later there was a commotion in the village. The owner of the house was going around the village and says, some kids stole my fruits, and I found evidence. And I think I was carrying my brother's, one of his pen, and it fell when I was jumping over, hopping over. And he says, I have evidence. If the kids don't come forward, I'm going to put a curse on the children that stole my fruit. So the word got around in the village, and very fast. And then they learned that it was I and three other friends, and so we got in trouble, and we were scolded at by our parents, and I don't know what happens to my friends, how they were reprimanded, but my parents just scold at me, is what I remember. And then, but the man that we stole from, because he got so mad that he threatened to put a curse on us. Eventually, it would have been me, because that was my pen. So when my father learned of that, you don't do that to kids. You don't threaten to curse a child, and that was just. So even though we wronged him, he also wronged us by overreacting and saying he's going to curse us. So he had to. The elders had a meeting, and it was settled that he needed to apologize for what he did. He went over and above what he was supposed to do. And he had to prepare a meal at the elder's house, at the chief elder's house, and where I was there with my parents. And so my dad was also an elder in the village at the time. And so he got quite not only fearful, but got offended by what happened, and that this man was going to, put a curse on me. So that that's kind of how the village works. If there is a discrepancy of some sort, you go to the chief, and the chief calls together the dispute members and help mediate the circumstances. And even though it was a bad experience, it's a story that I tell from time to time to illustrate the life in the village and the role of the elders in the village. That's how you would interpret it in English. It's a death curse, and if you call the evil spirits to basically put a death curse on someone. From what I've heard, when this is done, it happens. So that's why it was so serious, because if he went through to it, I would have died. Now that I think about it, that the second time I could have died. So to answer your question, death curse is he would perform a ritual ceremony to put a curse on me, and then 99% of the chances I would have died if he went through it. And it's a very, very serious threat. And some people, that's how, if you can be enemies with someone in a village and they put a death curse on you, you will die. And we've seen it, this has been done. So it's not like just a curse. That's just, I'm gonna curse at you, It's not just a word, but you involve the demonic spirits. And when they do that, the person, and they know what they're doing, the person will die. So as a child, really, again, we didn't have much to do. We did play quite a bit in the village, in the refugee camp. We did go to the farm to help our parents. I remember going to the city to help a farmer do some work in their field. They were growing peanuts, and so the process of digging up the peanuts from the ground. So I did that for a day or two with my parents. I remember doing that. So there's some work, but then there's a lot of time to play because you're in the middle of nowhere. I remember fishing. Not hunting because there's not enough place to go hunting. Fishing, swimming, and And then again, I think my parents bear most of the worry because that's what parents do. And your kids don't have food to eat, you're the one that worry. The kids, what do you do when you're hungry? You just cry, right? So that's kind of my experience. And again, I've seen the abuse, from the soldiers, and in the temporary shelter before we left in Bangkok. Again, really there was not much to do there. I mean, we were just kind of in a self-contained temporary shelter in Thailand, in Bangkok, in the city, and there was just we were just there doing really nothing until it was our time to come. People sometimes don't get along, and then and then you have because everyone's trying to survive, right? And if and then there theft is a often an activity within the camp. Again, out of if you had more and if someone that has less and they're hungry, what are they going to do? They're going to try to steal from someone who has a little more. And that's how we survive as a family. We traded the silver bars into Thai money so that we can buy some food or buy some materials for clothing and whatnot, and somewhat so that we can, other families who have more, we can buy from them, so that sort of thing. And fights. Fights happen within the camps, and but I don't remember people, fighting and dying from it. But it's just some of the common things. And the thing is, we were in Thailand. We were in the middle of nowhere, and we weren't allowed to go into the city. We weren't allowed to go live in Thailand either. So the way that it was done is once you do the paperwork and you got accepted to come to the U.S., the agencies here, the sponsoring agencies in the U.S., the Refugee Resettlement Programs, what they do is they look at all the documents of all the folks that the U.S. has accepted to come to the U.S., immigration. Then they try to find it's really the sponsoring agency, resettlement agency, that's then, okay, we need to, here's a Mien family. We need to find a sponsor for this family. So in other words, another family here in America that would say, you know what, we're gonna host them and we're gonna find shelter for them, we're gonna help them to buy food, we're gonna take them to the stores and make sure they get enrolled in school, and those type of things where the agency finds those people. We were fortunate when we came that there was another family in Portland. There were several families already in Portland at the time, and one of the family members, one of the Mien family, his English was fluent. He had studied English, and so he was also in the military. So they get to come first. So then he became a sponsor for our family. His name is Seng Chow. Still lives in Portland, and so then when we came, he was the one that showed us around and helped us find an apartment and all the other things that needed to be done to help us, and got me, settled in a school, and where actually it was in an apartment complex where he was living as well, and that apartment complex became a refugee apartment complex in the early '80s. So I remember, and again I tell this story sometimes too. when I immigrated, soon after, I remember my sponsor took me, my father accompanied us, so he took me to an elementary school because I was 13. And the registrar said, looked at the paper, and I couldn't understand any English. I didn't speak English, but we were turned away. So apparently I was too old to go to the elementary. So, yeah. So then my sponsor took me down the street about a mile away, and to the middle school. And there they did the paperwork. He got me registered, and I was placed in an 8th grade class. So on the way there from the apartment complex, he says, so remember, this is the road that we're on. It's a straight road. You know, when your school is over, you just walk back, because I'm gonna be working, so I don't have time to come and get you. So he took me there. I got registered, and then I remember they took me to a class. And everyone just looks strange to me and look, you know, tall and big compared to my size. And then I remember they had a desk in the corner. So it wasn't lined up like all the other students. So the teacher placed me there in that empty desk. So I was in an isolated corner, and I didn't know anybody in the class. After they dropped me off and left me, I was in this strange class of people that I didn't know, a language that I didn't speak. So I remember peeking at the window and saw my stepfather peeking in, and he left. And my tears starting to come down my eye, because I didn't know what to do. And I was in this strange classroom with people that I didn't know, no one I knew. The teacher I couldn't talk to. And that was my first day. And then after a little while, the bell rang. And then everyone they got up and they left the classroom. I was trying to make a decision. Should I go, follow the crowd, or should I stay? I had no instructions, nor anyone that explained to me what I was supposed to do. So I sat there for a little while. And then when I talk to children or young people, I tell them this story. I said, guess what I did? And so, no, I didn't go to another class, and no, I didn't stay. I walked all the way home. It was a mile walk. I did find my way home, so which is a very, very good thing, very good thing. When I got home, my sponsor's wife said, "What are you doing home? It's only 10:15. School is not over yet." I said, "School is over. The bell rang." The reason that's how I came to that conclusion is because in a refugee camp, I had 2 years of schooling in the camp. And they had 2 bells. One bell you lined up, and then you dismissed to your class. The second bell, you go home. So I made a logical decision. The bell rang. I wasn't trying to skip school. Just in my understanding, I thought school was over. So we went back and forth with my sponsor's wife and I. She kept saying, "No, school's not over. You got to go back." I said, "No, it's over. The bell rang." And after a while, I said, "Okay, I'll go back." So I walked all the way back to school. And when I got there, apparently there's a commotion.
Oh yeah, because you were missing.
They were looking for me. Yeah. And then from there on out, they make sure somebody escort me to the restroom, escort me to lunch. and escort me during recess and make sure I got back to my classroom. That was my first day of experience of school in America. So I think they kind of rotate that responsibility. A couple of the other students became my escorts. And there was no one at the school at the time that spoke Mien. There was another Hmong student that had been there for a couple years already, been in the U.S. His English was good. And so when I heard him talking in Hmong, then I started talking to him in Hmong because I was fluent in Hmong. And so then once the school found out that I spoke Hmong, they used him as a translator for me. And that was very, very helpful. That was very helpful. So he became my unofficial translator. Yeah. I got picked on quite a bit. There was this one, this was probably it was the second year, because I remember it was in the second classroom. There was this one student that was, he wasn't like terribly mean, but he was mean, meaning that he could have done worse things. So when a teacher isn't watching, when he goes back to the back fountain, he comes back, he would hit me on my head. Messed up my hair or hit me on my head. It's just being mean. So I didn't like that. I didn't like that boy. Again, I didn't speak much English yet. And one time, there was a group of them that pushed me into a locker. In those days, they had the long locker where if you're small enough, they could actually shove you in there and lock you in. And so that happened to me. They were having fun, I'm sure, but it was not fun for me. It was not fun for me, being mistreated that way. And I also remember I was in a workshop class, and the teacher was teaching, but I didn't understand a lot of things that he said. So I was asking my friends, what is he telling us to do? And then all of a sudden he says, you, go to the storage room.
Because you were talking?
Because I was talking. So he put me in the storage room for the whole period. Locked me in there for a whole period. I think there was a couple students that were kind of looking out for me. I remember, they didn't treat me bad. They left me alone, but I think the teachers were always looking for a volunteer when we went on field trips, that someone kind of keep an eye on me. So I remember a couple students that were nice and were trying to be helpful.
Form a friendship?
No, not to that extent. Not in the not in the middle school. So when I went to high school, and then I was involved in a local church, and I became friends with a couple of the members of the church that they were helping out the church. And they had kids too, so I became friends with a couple of their kids and became kind of, two of the families pretty much adopted me and a few of my friends. So we were over at their house quite a bit, friends with their sons. And I remember Ernie and his mom, they were very, very nice. I was over there for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. So that was part of my immersion into the American life and culture. That really helped a lot at school. Didn't really become friends with any of the mainstream student members. I don't remember, I don't remember, anyone really reaching out and say, we're going to be a buddy for you and show you the ropes. But we became friends. I have friends that are of other immigrant students. So we had Mien, Hmong, or other immigrant friends. I was in Portland, Oregon for I think it was 17 years. So I was up there a long time. I went to, again, the 2 years in middle school, 4 years in high school, and then I went to community college there, and I went to the Portland State, so Portland Community College, Portland State University, and then, so I was there a long, long time, and I started working there and in my one of my professions there after college. I often think about that and think about my life journey, and I think every stage of the way there's something that prompted me to go to the next stage. So when I was in high school, I remember there was a bilingual aid teacher that says, what are you going to do? Everyone calls me Seng at the time, because we have two names in the Mien culture. We have a childhood name and an adult name. So Chiem-Seng is actually my adult name. My childhood name is in Mien is Cheng Lin. So, but people can't say Cheng, so they either say Cheng or Seng. So I became Seng, kind of like Chiem-Seng, but it's not the same word. So he says, Seng, what are you going to do? So are you going to go to college, or are you going to, go to work? I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I remember having a couple of those conversations. And my brothers, I'm the youngest, so in some way that served to my advantage. So I saw my older brothers, one of them dropped out of high school. My oldest brother went to Job Corps, and then dropped out of Job Corps again, and then got married, just went to work. My second older brother graduated from high school and didn't go to college. My oldest sister, the same. They graduated from high school and they just went to work. And then I thought to myself, I must, when I reflect back, whether it was conscious decision or to what extent, I'm not sure, but I must have thought about, okay, do I want to follow my older siblings, or do I want to try something new? So being the youngest, I didn't have to worry about providing for my parents or providing for my family. So I decided, let's give college a try. So high school was very difficult because I was always playing catch up. I mean, being 13 when I immigrated and started learning English, I was always playing catch up, and not being able to catch up to the mainstream students. But somehow I managed to get through and pass my, all the subject areas and got the credits and graduated. And then I was enrolled in Portland Community College. At the time, my brother got married, and the apartment we lived in at Halsey Square, that was the same apartment that we lived in since we immigrated, and lots of refugees there. And so I didn't know what to do, because there was no room for me. I was the youngest. But one of my friends, his family decided to move to Redding, to California. And so he didn't have any place to live either. And so we graduated the same year, and San and we decided there was an opportunity to live in a college dorm. So we did something that no refugee did, at the time. that at least in the Mien and Hmong community that we were knew. So it wasn't too far from where we live, but so I didn't really have a place to live. I mean, it's 2 or 3 bedroom house, and the house was full, and so anyway, it worked out where we both applied and got accepted into Portland Community College, and we lived in a Portland State's dormitory, and we were there for 3 years, and that's when I went to took the bus to the community college and came back, and we lived there, and that was a very, very good experience. Fortunately, the financial aid was what paid for my college education. And I did have to work, I did work studies, so I always did work studies every semester. I had a scholarship. There was a sizable scholarship, and I think it was intended for people who want to go into teaching. And it was a scholarship there when I transferred to Portland State. And it was a very good scholarship, so I didn't have to work. But the other years I did have to work part-time. But financial aid really has helped paid for my bachelor's degree. I'm sure the school was helpful in some way. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I also had 2 other friends that they weren't Mien, they were older, and they weren't the 2 Caucasian friends I mentioned earlier my age. They were older because I was going to another church. So as a child, I was always doing some different things. And the leaders of the Bible study, one of them lived just 2 blocks from Halsey Square, the apartment we lived in. He was in college at the time. And so I believe Ted Moore, who's a physician now in LA, have been for a long time, a surgeon in LA. And so he was finishing his bachelor's, he was going to the medical school, and that's when we became friends. And so, I believe he guided me and San in navigating through that process to get into the college. Yeah. So I'll take help. No, he was not Mien.
He was not Mien.
Yeah, he was Caucasian as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he took the time to mentor you.
Right, and his parents, his mom was a teacher before, and so we would go to. His dad is a photographer for fun. He's an engineer, but he's likes taking pictures. So all the refugees go to his house, or ask him to come to our house and take pictures. In fact, he took a picture of our family, and so. But his mom was a teacher, so we go to her a lot for help with homework. And so that was, she basically adopted many refugee children over the years, and helped us a lot. So yeah, so neighbors can help, teachers can help, but other friends that I have met through the church and through the community, it was helpful a little bit at a time. I really think that Ted had an influence, and a couple other friends that were not Mien, but they're a little older than me, and they're either married or there was another friend, Nick, and his family. At the time, he finished his college already, so we were friends, and became my mentor. So I've had God has brought other people into my life to mentor me and kind of help me in that way, and just by encouraging me, like you had said. So I must have received quite a bit of encouragement from them to continue, but also it was in the end it's my decision, whether my friends all dropped out, so all quit and did other things, and I was remaining, and I continued. It was it was very, very much a struggle at the community college and at the state college as well. But I was able to pull through after 5 years. So I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And some people say, why don't you go into teaching? Right? So when I was at state college, my aim was to become a teacher. And right when I was finishing my bachelor's degree, they had switched to what we call a 5th-year program. Now it's been a 5th-year program in California forever, and probably since the 70s. And then in Portland at the time, they were catching on. So in other words, you can't get your bachelor and your credential at the same time. You have to get your bachelor, then go back and get your credential. So they were in the process of switching to a 5th-year program. And my advisor said, Dr. Joan Strauss, at the time, she said, why don't you finish your degree in your liberal arts and social sciences, and then if you decide to come back into the program, then you'll have to apply. But they were just switching over, so they're not admitting that many students. So I was kind of in a limbo at the time, and so I finished my degree, and then I figured if I apply, I can't really get in anyway. They're accepting so few students, and she was giving me that message. So I said, okay, then I'll just go to work and go back to school later. So I got a job at a nonprofit, a local nonprofit, and of all things, I was working with newly arrival refugees. They were adults, however, that were it was an employment agency, so I was teaching them about basic employment skills, language skills. At the time, we had a lot of Russian-speaking refugees, Vietnamese-speaking refugees, and that was in 1990, 91, 92. So Mien refugees stopped, and Hmong refugees too had stopped. So those were my students that I work with at this refugee center. And again, that was not planned for, and nor that I knew what I wanted to do, but that's what I ended up doing. And then I did that for about 2 years. And then an opportunity came up at the Urban League of Portland to work with Southeast Asian youth. So I applied and got the job there and went over there for 2 more years. And then another agency picked me up to work with juvenile delinquent. And so I did that for, again, about 3 more years or so. Along in that process, I got married towards the end of 1992. Our anniversary is coming up in a couple of weeks, so I'll be married for 21 years. It's been a while. So along the way I got married, and then I've kind of worked in a nonprofit social work profession, and then from there on out, after we got married, my son was born in 1995. Then in 1996, I wanted my wife to go to school because she's a smart person, and she just didn't. She tried it. When we first got married, she went to school, and then she had also went to work, and so she didn't get that far. When we had the baby, I said, okay, now after a year, what are we going to do? Who's going to take care of the baby? so that my wife can go to school. Because I finished my college already, and so I wanted her to get an education, just thinking of family's future. And I just really believe in that, because I was able to advance in that path. And so after, in 1996, my son turned 1. I said, okay, who's going to take care of the baby now? My mom had 10 grandkids running around already. Her health wasn't great. So I said, what are we going to do? Child care costs a lot. She could take part-time, but it'll take forever. So then we were on the phone with my mother-in-law, because she checks in on us occasionally, and we were just telling her about our child care issue. She said, well, if you move to Sacramento, because my wife is from Sacramento. In fact, we got married here at her church. And then I thought about it. Again, being a man of faith as well, I prayed about it, and then made a decision. And we were already settled already. We got married for 4 years. We bought a house, a 3-bedroom house. We were settled. She was happy. I was happy. It's just what we're going to do with the little one. And so maybe it was time, or it was faith. I sold our house, quit my job, and moved my family to Sacramento in 1996. And then I continued my work in social work. I was working for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Sacramento for a few years. Then an opportunity came up at the school district. I was through the Healthy Start program, and I said, okay, let me give this a try. And so that was my path, and that's how I got into education. So I've kind of blend my social work practice into education. And I worked for Sacramento City Unified School District for 13 years. And just a year and a half ago, I've gone on to the California State Department of Education. So been there ever since. But along the way, after I started working, I've also got involved with the Mien community and the overall Southeast Asian community. But in the Mien community, I had, in 1999, I started a student leadership conference to promote higher education and also cultural identity and cultural affirmation for Mien students. And because at the time we have a large population of Mien students in Sac City Unified. And we've always had a Mien population in Elk Grove as well, and has grown too, actually. And since more of the Mien moved out of South Sacramento into Elk Grove. And so the leadership conference has gone on for 15 years, and gearing up for a 16th year. So I started that before I was employed with the school district. But being employed was very helpful and helped me to give me the ability to kind of coordinate and leverage the resources to help put that together. And through that, I felt compelled to go back to school myself. So in 99, the same year, I went back to school, and so I was working for the school district, and then I went back to get my master's in social work at Sac State. And after the first year, I decided that, this is not that bad. I think, if I was given the opportunity, let's give a Ph.D. program a try. So I looked around. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. So after 10 years of working, decided to go back. And when I went back, I was engaged. And so I said, okay. I looked around and found a Ph.D. program at UC Davis. And at the time, it was a division of education, and now it became a school of education. And then, so after I finished my my master's in social work, I immediately enrolled in a Ph.D. program at UC Davis. I was in that program for 3 years. I took a year break because we had a car accident, a rollover on the freeway on our way to visit my parents in Portland. We were there already, but didn't quite make it, and somebody ran into us, so car flipped. And so after some injuries, no broken bone or worse, the whole family, so thank God. So recovery and all of that. My father-in-law also passed away that year, so we were going through a lot as a family that time, in 2004. So I took a year off school and did nothing but work and just try to recover. But then after a year, I went back. I was able to go back and continue for 3 more years and finish my education. So that's, in a nutshell, that's my story. There was a lot of struggles along the way. But that's my journey.